Twisted love triangle leads to harsh execution in parking garage. Kendra Hatcher grew up in a quaint town just outside Chicago, Illinois. From her earliest days, she was known for her compassionate and caring demeanor, qualities deeply rooted by her parents who emphasized the significance of service and positive impact. As she advanced through college, Kendra discovered her calling in dentistry, specifically choosing to specialize in pediatric dentistry due to her remarkable rapport with children and her desire to enhance their dental health. Upon completing her studies, Kendra secured her ideal position in 2015 at a pediatric dental clinic in a disadvantaged area of Dallas, Texas. This clinic was committed to community engagement, ensuring that local residents received top-notch dental care. Kendra's innate ability to connect with her patients and her genuine enthusiasm for her work quickly made her a beloved figure in the community. Kendra's personal life was just as fulfilling. She was considered a highly eligible bachelorette and soon caught the eye of Dr. Ricardo Ricky Paniagua, a dermatology resident from California. Their mutual attraction was undeniable, and within just 4 months of dating, they were deeply in love, discussing plans to move in together and even marriage. Her friends and family hadn't seen her this joyful in years, and her life appeared to be on a promising trajectory since her move to Dallas. However, in a tragic twist of fate, their future plans were abruptly halted. On September 2nd, 2015, while returning home from her day job as a receptionist at a local hospital, Kendra was engaged in a lively text exchange with Ricky about their eagerly anticipated vacation to Cancun the next day. Ricky, who was preparing to step out for dinner, asked Kendra to notify him upon her safe arrival home. At that same moment, in the parking garage of Kendra's apartment complex, Hashim, a resident, and his friend were heading to his car. The air was filled with the routine sounds of neighbors returning from work, oblivious to the impending calamity. Unbeknownst to Kendra, her life was about to take a dramatic and dark turn, forever altering the course of her future and those around her. The excitement of the upcoming trip and the normalcy of the evening masked the shadow of danger that loomed. Kendra's world, brimming with hope and new beginnings, was on the verge of shattering, leaving her loved ones and community in disbelief and sorrow. As Hashim and his friend neared the parking area, the unsettling sounds of screams and what resembled gunfire, a series of sharp pops pierced the air, halting them in their tracks. In the midst of their shock, a black Jeep Cherokee sped by, its abrupt appearance startling them further. Reacting instinctively, Hashim and his friend hurried into their car and followed the Jeep as it raced out of the parking garage. Upon exiting, a horrifying sight confronted them. A body sprawled beside a white Toyota Camry. Stopping safely at the roadside, Hashim urgently dialed 911, reporting a woman on the ground, bleeding profusely from her neck. When the police and paramedics arrived, they found the woman lifeless. The officers quickly identified the vehicle as belonging to Dr. Kendra Hatcher after running its plates. They confirmed her identity with a driver's license photo from their database, cementing the tragic realization that Kendra was the victim. The parking lot was immediately declared a crime scene. Amidst this chaos, Ricky, Kendra's boyfriend, was overcome with worry due to her unresponsive texts and calls. Confronted by a homicide detective at the scene, Ricky identified himself and learned of Kendra's death, a moment marked by his visibly authentic shock. Yet, as he was present at the crime scene, the detective had to probe his potential involvement. Ricky was soon escorted to the police station for questioning. Simultaneously, a team of crime scene investigators began their meticulous examination in the garage. They confirmed the grim details of Kendra's injuries, noting that the fatal shot had entered the upper back of her head and exited through her chin, adding a chilling layer of detail to the unfolding investigation. The investigation into Kendra Hatcher's tragic demise unveiled unsettling details at the crime scene, one of which was the gunshot residue found on Kendra's hands. This residue indicated that she may have had her hands behind her head at the time she was shot. Detectives surmised from the trajectory and wound that the perpetrator stood directly over her and fired, suggesting a calculated execution using a .40 caliber weapon. During their meticulous search, crime scene investigators discovered a handgun magazine on the ground. This crucial find suggested that in a rush, the shooter might have inadvertently pressed the magazine release, causing it to eject. Unfortunately, the magazine was clean of any DNA or fingerprints that could lead to identifying the assailant. Amidst the array of evidence, one detail starkly stood out. Kendra's purse was missing from the scene. This led detectives to speculate that the murder could have originated from a robbery attempt. To gather more information, they requested access to the security camera footage from the apartment complex's parking garage, hoping it might reveal more about the circumstances of the crime. While the CCTV footage was under review, detectives conducted a thorough interview with Ricky at the police station. Throughout the interrogation, Ricky appeared genuinely shocked and bewildered by the events. Despite the initial suspicions and his proximity to the crime scene, there was no direct evidence linking him to the act, leaving the detectives unable to justify holding him as a suspect. Ricky was eventually released due to insufficient evidence to press charges. Soon after his release, the awaited security footage was analyzed by the detectives. The video recorded a sequence of chilling actions. At 7:15 p.m. on September 2nd, a black Jeep Cherokee followed another vehicle into the garage and parked. Roughly 27 minutes later, Kendra's white Toyota Camry entered the garage and maneuvered into her spot. The footage then captured a suspect exiting the Jeep and walking out of frame towards Kendra's car. Moments later, the Jeep reversed direction and the suspect reappeared, swiftly entering the passenger side of the vehicle, leaving a trail of unanswered questions and a chilling narrative of the events leading up to Kendra's untimely death. The Jeep made a swift exit from the parking garage, captured on security footage that, unfortunately, was too grainy to discern the driver's features or the vehicle's license plate. However, a critical breakthrough occurred when one camera captured a clear shot of a woman, presumed to be the driver, as she left the garage. This image, along with a picture of the black Jeep Cherokee, was quickly publicized by the detectives. Soon after the images were broadcasted, a significant lead emerged. 2 days following Kendra's death, a man named Jose Ortez reached out to the police, claiming recognition of the Jeep and expressing his desire to discuss the case. He met with detectives at the police station where he confirmed the Jeep belonged to him, recognized by its distinctive rims and bumper trim. Jose, however, vehemently denied any involvement in the murder. He was adamant about clearing his name, explaining that he had lent the Jeep to his friend Brenda Delgado on the day of the murder. Contradicting the possibility of her driving the Jeep at the time of the crime, Jose claimed they were together at Chili's for dinner. However, he also disclosed that after confronting Brenda about the Jeep's involvement in the crime as reported in the news, she had threatened him to keep the police out of it, even suggesting she could create complications regarding his immigration status if he did not comply. Brenda also proposed to have the Jeep repainted to ensure it did not match the vehicle the police were searching for. This conversation raised alarms for the detectives, suggesting Brenda's potential deep involvement in the crime. Motivated by these revelations, the detectives on September 4th contacted Brenda Delgado to request her presence at the police department for a formal interview, hoping to uncover more details about her connection to Kendra's tragic murder. The investigation delved into Brenda Delgado's background, revealing her immigration from Mexico to Dallas as a child. Known among acquaintances as quiet and reserved, Brenda also exuded a noticeable vibrancy. At 33, she was earnestly working toward a dental hygienist certification, a goal supported by her professors who lauded her ambition and saw a promising future for her in the field. Despite these commendations, Brenda insisted she had no knowledge of Kendra, the murder victim, and claimed she was with her boyfriend Jose at Chili's on the night of the murder. To substantiate her alibi, Brenda presented a receipt from Chili's dated the evening of September 2nd, asserting it as evidence of her whereabouts. However, the detectives were skeptical about the convenience of retaining such a receipt, perceiving it as an unusual anomaly that someone would keep a days-old receipt so readily at hand. Brenda's involvement in the case came under scrutiny when the detectives mentioned that Jose Ortez had identified her as the individual who had borrowed his Jeep. Contrarily, Brenda deflected by stating that it was actually her friend, Crystal Cortez, who had borrowed the vehicle, not her. She provided Crystal's contact details to the detectives, suggesting they bring her in for questioning to clarify the details. When Crystal Cortez was brought in for questioning, she provided a shocking confession. She admitted to being the driver of the black Jeep Cherokee, captured on the CCTV footage on the day of Kendra's murder. According to her, the drive took an unexpected turn when a man forcefully entered the vehicle and commandeered the driver's seat, brandishing a gun. Crystal recounted the harrowing moment the man pointed the gun at her head while her son was in the car. Overwhelmed with fear for both their lives, she pleaded for their safety, but her appeals were coldly ignored. The assailant demanded she drive, explicitly threatening harm if she did not obey his command. Under duress, Crystal navigated as instructed, with the gun pressed against her temple. This coerced compliance marked a chilling chapter in the investigation, intertwining her story with the tragic events that led to Kendra Hatcher's untimely death and casting a broader net of suspicion as the detectives continued to unravel the complex web of relationships and motives surrounding the case. Crystal recounted how they arrived at the apartment parking garage around 7 p.m., tailgating another vehicle to gain entry. Once inside, she parked the Jeep and waited. Moments later, as a white car passed by, the man accompanying her stepped out. Shortly after, gunshots rang out, sparking fear in Crystal that the man had committed a violent act. He quickly returned to the Jeep and urged her to drive away. Following his instructions, Crystal drove to a downtown Dallas location where she dropped the man off, leaving her to navigate the city streets alone with her son. Contrary to her earlier claim, surveillance video revealed that Crystal entered the parking garage alone on the morning of the murder without her son, casting doubt on her narrative. The detectives grew skeptical of Crystal's account, especially her insistence that she had been coerced at gunpoint to participate. They questioned why she hadn't seized any opportunity to escape or seek help during the ordeal. The CCTV footage showed Crystal calmly waiting for the man to return to the Jeep, which contradicted her claims of being a hostage in the situation. Confronted with these inconsistencies and relentless questioning by the detectives, Crystal finally admitted her involvement in a planned attack on Kendra. However, she maintained her ignorance of the man's intention to use a gun, asserting that their original plan was merely to rob Kendra. The confrontation escalated when Kendra resisted handing over her belongings, leading to the fatal shooting. Crystal revealed that the man had threatened her life if she spoke of the incident, heightening her fear. Further probing led Crystal to implicate Brenda Delgado as the mastermind behind the plot. According to Crystal, Brenda had orchestrated the plan driven by a complex web of personal connections. She hinted at a motive rooted in jealousy, suggesting that both Brenda and Kendra had romantic interests in the same man. This twist in the narrative prompted detectives to delve deeper into the relationships involved, pondering how these intertwined affections might have fueled the tragic outcome. During their investigation, detectives uncovered a significant backstory. Ricky had been involved with Brenda Delgado for over 2 years. The couple initially broke up in June 2014, but decided to rekindle their relationship by December of the same year, only to part ways again by February 2015. Shortly after his final split from Brenda, Ricky met Kendra and they quickly connected. Ricky's decision to update his Facebook profile picture to one featuring him and Kendra did not sit well with Brenda, who perceived the new relationship as a direct threat. Crystal then disclosed to the detectives that Brenda, feeling spurned by Ricky's new relationship, had propositioned her to commit a robbery. Brenda's plan, according to Crystal, was to steal Kendra's purse, offering Crystal $500 for her involvement. Crystal emphasized that the objective was merely theft, not harm. However, the detectives harbored doubts about the veracity of Crystal's assertions and decided to confront Brenda directly in another round of questioning. In the interrogation room, Brenda faced questions about her past romantic involvement with Ricky, which she denied knowing anything about. Meanwhile, the detectives gained access to both Brenda's and Crystal's cell phones with their consent, uncovering evidence of a meeting between the two on the day of Kendra's murder. They also confirmed the transfer of $500 Brenda had promised Crystal, which corroborated part of Crystal's earlier statement. Among the data retrieved from the phones, a particular photo on Crystal's phone caught the detectives' attention. It showed Crystal holding the $500 arranged in the shape of a heart. The image was unsettling for the investigators. Despite the gravity of the situation, Crystal displayed no signs of distress or remorse. Instead, she seemed to delight in her gain, contradicting her professed upset over the incident. Returning to Crystal's interrogation, the detectives presented the selfie to challenge her emotional state at the time of the crime. They pressed her to explain her seemingly joyous demeanor if she truly felt disturbed by Kendra's death, as previously claimed. Faced with relentless questioning, Crystal finally started to crack, revealing the identity of the shooter she referred to only as Lamar, whom she claimed to have met at a downtown Dallas bar the month before. This new information about Lamar and the complex web of relationships and motives provided the detectives with more avenues to explore. They began to piece together the puzzle of jealousy and betrayal that seemed to underlie the tragic murder of Kendra Hatcher. Crystal alleged that the shooter, whom she referred to as Lamar, drove a blue Chrysler Sebring. However, the detectives harbored doubts about the veracity of this claim, suspecting that Crystal might be providing a false name to shield the real perpetrator. In pursuit of the truth, they took the phone number Crystal provided for Lamar and passed it to their investigative team for further action. Following her admission of involvement as a getaway driver and the receipt of payment from Brenda, Crystal was arrested, though evidence linking Brenda directly to the murder remained insufficient. Nevertheless, Brenda was not without legal troubles. She had several unpaid traffic tickets. Seizing this opportunity, the detectives arrested her on these grounds, allowing them to hold her in custody while they continued probing the murder case. In their quest to verify Crystal's statements about Lamar, the detectives delved into their criminal records database, only to find no leads supporting any connection between Lamar and the crime. Not deterred by this setback, the detectives sought the expertise of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI. With FBI collaboration, they tracked the phone number Crystal had attributed to the shooter. Surveillance operations at the address linked to this number confirmed the presence of a blue Chrysler Sebring in the driveway, aligning with Crystal's description of the shooter's vehicle. On September 30th, nearly a month after Kendra's murder, their surveillance paid off. A man was seen leaving the house, entering the Sebring, and driving away. FBI agents followed him to a nearby parking lot where they approached and identified him as 31-year-old Christopher Love. Christopher was promptly apprehended, and his vehicle was seized and sent to the auto impound lot for thorough examination, marking a critical advancement in the ongoing investigation. When crime scene investigators searched Christopher Love's car, they unearthed a .40 caliber firearm, the same caliber weapon used in Kendra Hatcher's murder. This critical find led the detectives to promptly send the gun to the forensic lab for a ballistics test. Within an hour, the lab confirmed that the shell casing found at the murder scene matched the gun found in Christopher's possession, irrefutably linking him to the shooting. Faced with this damning evidence, Christopher was taken to the police station for questioning. Upon his arrival, detectives presented him with the incriminating evidence, the firearm retrieved from his car. Initially, Christopher acknowledged ownership of the gun, but vehemently denied any involvement in Kendra's murder. He attempted to deflect blame onto Crystal, claiming she was the actual shooter. However, this assertion was quickly debunked by the detectives, who had confirmed Crystal's whereabouts at the time of the murder through CCTV footage, placing her in the driver's seat of the Jeep, not firing a weapon. Further digging into the case revealed a more sinister plot. Christopher disclosed that Brenda Delgado had promised him drugs as payment to assist in the crime. He alleged that Brenda had accused Kendra of stealing drugs from her residence and having ties to a drug cartel. Nonetheless, when detectives cross-checked these claims, they found them baseless. Kendra was a respected pediatric dentist with no connections to illegal activities. With these revelations, Christopher was charged with capital murder and detained in Dallas County Jail. Brenda, initially held for her unpaid traffic tickets, managed to clear those fines on September 5th and was released. Unbeknownst to the authorities at the time, her release would lead her to flee the country in a desperate attempt to escape justice. In a calculated move, Brenda headed straight for the Mexican border, boarding a bus to elude law enforcement. Aware of her flight, the detectives acted swiftly. They leveraged the media to issue a public alert announcing Brenda as a wanted individual for capital murder. The authorities strongly urged her to surrender, emphasizing the seriousness of the charges against her and the ongoing national pursuit. This sequence of events marked a significant turn in the investigation, with the net closing in on Brenda as law enforcement intensified their efforts to bring her to justice, while Christopher faced the legal consequences of his actions in connection to the tragic demise of Kendra Hatcher. Brenda Delgado ignored the calls for her surrender, instead escaping across the border into Mexico, where she successfully evaded capture for months. The Dallas Police Department, in collaboration with the FBI and Mexican local authorities, launched an extensive manhunt, utilizing a mix of surveillance, interviews with potential witnesses, and extensive background checks. The task force dedicated numerous resources and strategies in their relentless pursuit to bring Brenda to justice. Their persistent efforts finally bore fruit in April 2016, when Brenda was located and detained in Mexico. However, bringing her back to the United States posed a new challenge: the requirement from the Mexican government that the U.S. not seek the death penalty against her. After a series of negotiations, the U.S. authorities agreed to these terms, paving the way for Brenda's extradition to face charges of capital murder. Upon her return, the legal proceedings against Brenda intensified when Crystal Cortez, another key figure in the case, agreed to a plea deal. In exchange for a reduced sentence, Crystal consented to testify against Brenda. She confessed her role in the murder plot and subsequently received a 35-year prison sentence. During Brenda's 2019 trial, Crystal provided a detailed account of the events, stating that while Brenda created an alibi with her dinner at Chili's, she and Christopher Love had ambushed Kendra in her apartment's parking garage. Crystal's testimony painted a chilling picture. As Kendra arrived, driving her white Toyota Camry, Christopher stepped out, shot her, and snatched her purse before fleeing back to the waiting Jeep. Brenda's defense team, however, contested this narrative. They argued that Brenda, described as unlikely to mastermind such a crime, was being unfairly blamed. The defense suggested that Crystal and Christopher had independently decided to rob and murder Kendra, influenced by negative comments Brenda had made about her, and saw an opportunity to pin the crime on Brenda. The jury, after careful consideration, found Brenda guilty of capital murder, sentencing her to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. This verdict was echoed in the fate of Christopher Love, who faced his own trial on October 31st, 2018. He was convicted of capital murder and received the death penalty, conclusively tying up the tragic case of Kendra Hatcher's murder.